Hi everyone, my name's CreamPuff100, or if you meet me on DCS, I go by the call sign Thumper. Today we're going to be starting a small little DCS Liberation campaign just for fun. If you don't know what Liberation is, it is a mod that hooks into your mission editor on DCS and generates a turn-by-turn campaign. As we go through this, we'll be kind of focusing on just the theater as a whole and how it unfolds each turn. I'll be primarily flying the F-16 as my primary aircraft. I'll be flying a little bit of the A-10 and the Apache for CAS operations. And we might even dip into combined arms a little bit for objective and runway capture. I'm certainly not an expert on any of the topics that we'll be covering, but I hope everyone can enjoy it and have fun all the same. So if you're new to Liberation, you'll actually be looking at a blank screen here. Mine has stuff here just because I've been playing it prior to this. We're going to go up here to New Campaign. There is a whole bunch of different choices we have here. A huge database of options that the creators of Liberation have set up for us, the players. We'll be doing Mozdok to Maykop, as that is the most performance-friendly one, and it's, I think, the smallest. And we can invert the map here should we decide that we want to spawn at a different airport. And just for weather's sake, we're going to drop this to something modern. We'll see what that gets us. Now, again, if you're new, if you're trying to decide what faction you want to play as, a good recommendation is Blue 4, as this has most of the flyable aircraft in the game, minus a few of like the MiGs, but there's pretty much everything, definitely everything we want covered here, and there's a few just kind of fun ones so we can have kind of a multi-national type of operation here. This is what's available for aircraft. Frontline vehicles, artillery units, and our air defenses. And as Blue 4, it's only fitting that we go up against Red 4. Here we have their available aircraft. Frontline vehicles, air defenses, or artillery units and air defenses. Next, we can highlight, checkmark any of these boxes for changing certain settings. Pretty much all of them are exactly as they read. The only thing I'm going to be changing here is I'm going to bump this up to 90-minute missions, as this is what I find the most comfortable. For kind of just a quick, dirty campaign here, I'm going to jack up our income multiplier, but I'm going to max out the starting budget of the enemies. So basically, they're going to start out with a lot of resources, but as the game progresses, the 5x multiplayer is going to help us kind of wrap things up in a timely manner, so we don't have to go through a gajillion turns to try to end the game. We will automate our runway repairs, automate our frontline purchases, but we'll be purchasing aircraft ourselves. Finish. And we'll have our squadron select screen. So the first thing here we're going to do is let's get rid of the Russian aircraft. It just doesn't seem quite right when we're up against Red 4. Other thing is this KC-130. We're not going to be flying any missions in this particular theater long enough where we're going to have to refuel. So we're just going to clear this out of here. A-10 we will be flying, but we want the Sweet 7 with the really cool Jahimics. So we're going to clear that out as well. F-15s are a great cap vehicle sometimes. It depends on how the AI is feeling. And then the E3, of course, we need. We'll go ahead and drop in our A-10s. our Apaches. Now see, you can choose what base you want them to be available. I want them to be available at our FARP. And our squadron select, we'll just leave random, let the game decide. We want to nab up our F-16s, as that is my primary aircraft. And then, just for the kind of multinational aesthetic here, we'll pick up some other fun ones. We'll grab some Vigans can be available. About Tomcats. When it comes to cap in the game, it feels like Tomcats are a little bit better at it than F-15s, which is, you know, obviously ridiculous, but it's just the way DCS AI works. We have to work with what we got. We want some B1s to be available because they're awesome. We want... What else do we want here? F-18s. We do want available. What about some Mirages? Quite a few capable vehicles. We got a heavy bomber, some very good strike aircraft. We've got everything I can fly, and that looks pretty good to me. So we're gonna go ahead and hit this X, and it's gonna plop us right into this theater here. Now, something to note is, say you drop in here and maybe you don't like the way it looks. Maybe you look up here and you see, oh, there's an SA2. I don't like that. I want to do something else. Well, you can just load up the exact same campaign with the exact same settings, and most of the time, this will change. Sometimes it'll be maybe like an SA6 or something. It's worth experimenting and seeing what there is, because Liberation has a pretty huge database of options available. And so once we're here, we can see our enemy airport here and here. Here's the enemy FARP. Here's a friendly FARP, friendly airport. Here, this orange line, this is our front line. This is where most of the ground battle is going to be happening. And each of these symbols represents a different type of site. So, like these little half circles here, these are our air defenses. This is a power substation. And each resource, so anything that's not like a vehicle, is going to be resources. So they're going to contribute to your economy. And adversely, the enemy resources are contributing to theirs. So we want to try to hit these as much as possible and wear down their resources so we can defeat them. Before we start purchasing any aircraft, there are a couple settings I want to change. I'm going to jump up here. Going to set the AI to high. Now, the reason for this is high AI always feels like it makes better decisions than the excellent AI to me. I'm not sure why this is. I think it's because I think it has to deal with commit range. I think the AI is more likely to just disengage when it's on high. I'm not sure. I haven't confirmed that, but that's always the way it's felt for me. I'm going to generate day missions. In-game labels off. There's a ton of settings here that you can play with on your own. But I'm going to jump over here to the mission generator. And if you haven't played Liberation before, it is definitely worthwhile to checkmark this box. If you do not checkmark this box and you go in to fly your mission and you try to jump into your aircraft before the game thinks you are supposed to, it will glitch out completely and you will launch into space, and it is not a good time. So something to be aware of. Checkmark that box. Up here we can see we are our factions. We can see we're on turn 0. We can see our weather. our budget. Our Intel tab, this will actually populate more once we get to turn 1. Air wing and transfers. So, what we'll do is jump down here and we're ready to start purchasing aircraft. So we'll go to our FARP. We'll click our heliport. We can buy 8 aircraft. We'll populate that with Apaches. Jump over here to Mozdok. We can purchase 39 aircraft. So first and foremost, we want to make sure we have an AWACS. And then we can purchase our cap. So I'm going to be using Tomcats for this task. I'm going to purchase some Eagles as our backup cap. And then we'll kind of get wacky with it. Let's get some A10s. We'll snatch up some Vigans. Snatch up some Mirages. I'm going to want F-16s. That's what I'll be flying. We'll grab some F-18s. And let's grab some B-1s. That has filled up all of our slots. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check on our air defenses and make sure I like the layout. So we have NASAMS, NASAMS. NASAMS are great. Patriots, unfortunately, are not the best, but they still are longer range than any of the other blue options, so that's what we'll be using. NASAMS, Avengers, those look pretty good. I think I am going to swap out this NASAM site with a Hawk. Oh, there we go. Hawk site, perfect. And we still have a huge amount of money left over. So let's jump back up here. We can see our ground forces. We can set their stance. We'll just leave it on defensive right now. But we're just going to populate this full of more vehicles. All right. That's plenty. A little bit left over. We'll just hold on to that for the next turn. So, we've purchased our aircraft. We are ready to start planning turn 1. So we'll hit begin campaign. Now, Liberation is pretty good about planning its own packages here. So you could definitely do an entire campaign just letting it plan packages for you and you fly them and see how they go. However, we are going to add them in manually. We're going to clear these out. First and foremost, we're going to get AWACS coverage. Now, the way the AI logic works in Liberation is your AWACS flight. The way it used to be is it would fly out and stay over its objective for 1 hour and then RTB. I think that has since been fixed. I think it stays on site for quite a bit longer than that. Where it will matter is if you start planning bar cap flights. Your bar cap flights will stay on station for 30 minutes and then RTB. And they do still do this. So it's worth thinking about, so I'm doing a mission that's 1 hour and 30 minutes. I know that they're going to be 30-minute blocks, so I'm going to need 3 different flights covering bar cap for me. The the AI for Liberation, it will do this by itself. As if you saw there earlier, it does that already. But that's just something to think about if you're new to Liberation. So we've scheduled a BARCAP flight at 13 minutes time over target. So we're going to schedule another. We're using the F-14s as our primary BARCAP, but we'll schedule this one exactly 30 minutes out, 43:03. And again, we have to cover that whole hour and a half. So BARCAP, F-14s, and that's going to be at 1 hour, 13:03. And ideally, we would have just another BARCAP flight kind of covering at the end. The reason for this is a lot of times in Liberation, the red team likes to plan a lot of its packages for the very tail end of whatever time limit you've selected. So I've selected an hour and a half. A lot of times the AI is going to send a bunch of flights at that hour and a half mark to try to strike me. If you don't have ample air coverage, you just kind of get raided. Right now we're just going to leave it blank, but this is kind of a general template. This will be on every single turn we do. There's going to be something that looks similar to this. Everything else that we put in is going to be what's mixing it up. So let's definitely go ahead and get some CAS flying out here. And this front line can be a little weird if you don't click it. If you don't click it to the left, it kind of doesn't work. It's a little strange, but we're going to add in a CAS flight. And I like to spend my first turn personally. I like to spend my first turn a little defensive. So typically I'll do TARCAP over the front line for my first turn. There is a nice juicy SA2 here, which I think that is what we're going to start out with. We're going to be running Seed on the SA2. That's what I will be doing at the start of this turn. We're going to follow it up with some dead, an AI flight, and we're going to give an escort. As a matter of fact, knowing the AI, what we'll do instead is we will just run the seed flight. That will make this safe for our A-10s on the front line. On our another turn, we'll come and cleanse the site. And so, what else do we have? We have SA-15s here. Actually, what I definitely want to do is hit this workshop. Take away resources as much as possible. So we're going to do strike on this workshop. Let's get Vegans to do that. We're going to give them an escort. But we want to make sure this happens after we do our seed, since it's right in the middle of the SA2. So we will put this at 45 minutes time on target. That gives us plenty of time to get our seed done, and then they can strike that workshop. SA-15s, we'll go ahead and task some dead from our trusty F-16s. And we'll give them an escort as well. Let's do F-15s. Actually, let's go ahead. I should try to save F-15s a little bit in case our F-14s get rocked this turn. So let's just have a escort led by F-16s. And ASAP is fine. And what else do we have? So I think what we'll do is, what type of resource is this? Well, it's contributing 4 million. So let's go ahead and try to sneak some bombers over that. Just one. We'll just send one. And we'll give them an escort as well. We will send F-15s for that. That is pretty deep. And so we do have some leftover aircraft. So maybe in the same turn that we seed this SAM site, we're going to try to cleanse it. Let's do... Yes. And we will adjust our payload here. JSOWs are pretty hit or miss for me, so what I'm going to do instead is we will really make sure we can cleanse the site with some Mavericks. That should be more than enough to cleanse an SA2 site. And see how these two time on targets are? This flight won't actually begin, and neither of these flights will begin until I seat in them. So it doesn't matter when they are, really. As soon as possible is fine, even though we're going to be late, but that's okay. And that being said, I think we are ready to begin. We've got clear weather, no rain, no fog. That looks good to me. So here, let's do extra bar cap from these Mirages towards the end of the mission. Just to make sure we're covered for any sneaky moves the red is trying to make. I could click over here and just look at what their moves are, but that kind of takes the fun out of it. So, that being said, we're ready to fly. And we're going to go ahead and hit takeoff. And we'll jump into DCS. We'll fly the mission. And we'll see how it all plays out. And we'll come back here and move on to the next turn planning phase. I'll see you on the battlefield.